I wouldn't want to defend that in court.
John?
Stop you right there. All the books of the Bible were written sometime after Jesus died. So what eyewitnesses are you talking about? And if, like, you know, the whole God thing was that important, maybe you should write it maybe not 30 years after.
This guy tries to debunk the Bible by saying that it was written way after the fact and it can't be reliable, and it absolutely backfires. So let's get right into it. Shout out to Cliff and give me an answer. Hopefully I can meet him one day and do a live with him. Let's go.
Why God created me for a purpose, I don't know. See, God didn't ask me to be his consultant.
So you don't know the purpose of your purpose, but you know you have a purpose.
No, I don't know why God created me for a purpose. I thought that was your question.
Yeah, you believe you have an inherent purpose, but you don't know what the purpose of having an inherent purpose is.
Well, that's not the way I would put it, but...
I think it makes sense. Is that just a yes or no question? You think you have a purpose, but you're not really sure why you have that purpose.
No, I am sure why I have that purpose, because God created me for that purpose.
All right, but you don't know why God created you for that purpose.
I don't know what went on in the mind of God in eternity past.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't understand that. In other words, I don't understand why God gave me the gift of life. I don't know why there's a cliff.
I think that was your parents. All right,
Wow.
Then why don't you believe in alternative prophets like maybe Muhammad, who has his own historical evidence?
I am convinced that Muhammad was an historical person. The evidence is Muhammad really was born and really died and really lived and taught and fought. Now, the reason that I don't trust Muhammad is because when I read the Quran, I see internal contradictions. Like, Jesus is not God, but I respect Jesus. He's a good teacher. Obviously, Muhammad was born about 500 years after Christ, which means Muhammad never met Jesus. But the eyewitnesses who saw Jesus insisted Jesus claimed to be God. So who am I going to trust to be my primary source about an historical person? A dude who lived 500 years after the guy? Or the eyewitnesses? It's a no-brainer.
Who are the eyewitnesses?
Matthew, John.
Stop you right there. All the books of the Bible were written sometime after Jesus died. So what eyewitnesses are you talking about?
Matthew, John, Peter.
How can they be eyewitnesses if the Bible was written sometime after Jesus died, like hundreds of years?
Oh.
Yes.
Well, obviously, every history is written sometime after the events.
Yeah, but
right? If the history was written before the events, then we'd have a real problem.
Fair enough, but I like to think eyewitness means you were there at that time.
You were there.
I mean, it's hard to be an eyewitness 300 years after something happened.
It sure is.
Unless you have a DeLorean, but that's a different topic.
A great point. Sir, it used to be taught on every major university campus here in the United States that the Gospels were not written until 200, 300, 400 years after the fact. One manuscript find smashed that whole school of thought. It's located in the John Rylands Museum in Manchester, England. It's a fragment of the Gospel of John, dated between 105 and 130 AD. Secondly, that whole school of thought was smashed by the letters of Clement, Bishop of Rome, Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch, in 95 AD and in 115 AD, in which they quote all of the Gospels, all of Paul's letters. So obviously this whole school of thought that taught the Gospels were not written, the New Testament was not written for 300 to 400 years after the fact, has been totally discredited by the manuscript finds.
Is documents written only 100 or so years after Jesus' death, as per what you just told me, like 95 AD and 103 AD, right? So it's not hundreds of years, it's just 100 years, is what you're telling me, right?
No. When you study Paul's writings, and when he wrote them, he died in 62 AD approximately, you begin to realize that Galatians, 1 Corinthians, were written in late 40s, early 50s. So that is 20 to 30 years after the fact. 20 to 30 years after Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, Paul writes Galatians, 1 Corinthians.
Okay, so eyewitness event would be 30 years after the event, correct?
Yes.
See, I feel like that's problematic because what you just told me with your, hullabaloo and all this, that, and the other, that eyewitnesses have to be there, and histories aren't written after. But 30 years seem to be, I mean, if I try to recount, well, I was not alive 30 years ago, but I'm not sure how great your memory is. But if you try to write a recount in a book over one event that happened 30 years in your past, I feel like that's not eyewitness.
I can do it.
Okay, fine.
Bruh, this guy is so skeptical. Literally, everything he says just is like a skeptic. But it's great. I'm glad he's asking these questions. Back then, everyone had memorization that is absolutely better than ours. Half the people didn't know how to write. So that means they had to rely more on their memory. You don't think that they wouldn't remember the gist of the extraordinary things that Jesus did?
And if, like, you know, the whole God thing was that important, maybe you should write it maybe not 30 years after.
Okay.
Just like,
Now, when you study the...
And that's absolutely crazy and very ignorant to say, because how expensive it is to even write things down. They were saying in the year 300 or 200, 300, it took over 300 sheeps to be killed, sheepskin, to write the entire Bible. That's a lot. So that's why they had to have an actual king empire to order this to happen. Writing stuff down is no joke.
First century Christian church, they were not impressed with writing. They were leaning on the oral presentation of the history by the eyewitnesses. And so the first church meetings in late 30s, 40s, and 50s AD were not gatherings where they read a book. They were gatherings where an eyewitness who had seen Jesus shared what she or he had seen and heard. Then, as these eyewitnesses began to die off, suddenly it became rather clear we need to write this stuff down. And so they wrote down what they had seen and what they had heard.
All right, so just to be clear, like, you believe all the stuff that happened with Jesus because after Jesus died, and people have all these, like, eyewitness and oral, you know, ways of communicating. 30 years after that, eyewitnesses, and 30 years after that, people wrote a few things about it, and then 100 years after that, more people wrote anything about that, and 2,000 years later, we're here, and you're telling me you believe that all these things happened, like, in regards to Jesus Christ, based on historical evidence that seems to be, I don't know, I wouldn't want to defend that in court.
Well, obviously in court, an eyewitness can put you in jail. Not only that, an eyewitness account in court can get you in the electric chair, executed.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely wild that he would say, I wouldn't hold these up in court. Oh, yeah, all you have to do is have a certain amount of eyewitnesses to confess, and you're screwed.
So remember, eyewitness accounts are very, very important. Very important. And the overwhelming evidence is that these eyewitnesses who claim to have seen Christ die on a cross, buried in the tomb, a very specific tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, 3 days later, they saw him risen from the dead. They were willing to die for what they claimed to have seen.
A lot of people are willing to die for things they believe in.
Believe in, yes, but not claim to have seen. Because these guys are claiming to have seen Christ, not just simply to believe in him. But they're saying, we saw Jesus risen from the dead, and they were willing to be martyred for them. Sir, martyrs and hypocrites are not made of the same stuff.
I disagree.
You think people will die to cover up what they know to be alive?
People would, or I don't know if you, once again, it's like oral presentation in history from 2,000 years ago, so I'm not sure what these eyewitnesses actually said. I mean, doesn't the Bible in and of itself have several accountings of when Jesus rose? Maybe there's two angels one time, there's one angel when the boulder was originally moved? Or are there not multiple interpretations of that in the Bible?
Well, I'm going to talk to my wife tonight on the phone. And if I, during the conversation, say I spoke to a gentleman about the evidence for the reliability of the New Testament, and later on in the conversation I say I spoke to over 500 people this afternoon, it's not a contradiction. I spoke to one man at one point, and I also spoke to over 500 people. So just because one gospel says there was an angel in an empty tomb, and another gospel says there were two angels in an empty tomb, is not a contradiction. We would have a contradiction if one of the gospels said there was only one angel at the empty tomb, and then another gospel said there were two angels.
So just to be clear, what you're saying is that because one gospel just forgot to mention another angel being there, and they only said one, that doesn't mean that there was actually two. That person just has a bad reaccounting of things that happened.
No. What I'm saying is,
All right.
when you read, now listen, just let me answer you, and then you go on to the next one. When you look at CNN, Reuters, and the New York Times record a specific event, they are not going to be identical. You're going to have some common details, and you will have some divergent details. But there are not going to be blatant contradictions. And one of the ways that you tell whether an account is true is by looking at the different accounts and seeing, are there common details plus divergent details? If there are no divergent details, you know they were copying off each other. If there are too many divergent details and they contradict each other, then you know somebody's wrong. But what is so fascinating about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is they have common details. Do they diverge in certain ways? Absolutely yes. The same way CNN, Reuters, and the New York Times will have divergent details of the storm in the Philippines.
Okay.
All right.
Let me try this as well.
And just because those things are a little bit different, I would even say if one person said that there was one angel and another person said that there was two angels, only two angels, or whatever, I don't think that even makes a difference compared to, obviously, if one person says, yeah, Jesus didn't rise from the dead.
So if we're looking at a news report by CNN, and you consider something, or I guess CNN 2,000 years ago fundamentally, that the absence of one angel is somehow a small detail and not very important to the story, that's problematic. Angels are not details that can simply be left out. I'm to believe what you probably feel about the significance of angels on Earth. This is problematic. This is not the equivalent of a few details. These are the equivalent of CNN saying we're in war in one country and Fox News saying we're like at war in the North Pole. These are highly divergent things that seem to be really important. These are not details, sir. These are important things.
I will let everybody make their own decision on that one.
Okay.
I think that one's crystal clear.
Me too.
We disagree.
All right, just one more question on the, I believe earlier about moral absolutism or things of this sort, and you were like, there are certain situations where you can't be moral absolutist. Do those not contradict, or?
But if there is no God, there are no moral absolutes. Because if there is no God, morality comes from the human mind. And my human mind is not superior to your mind. So if you say one thing is good and I say it's evil, you're not right, I'm not wrong, I'm not right, you're not wrong. It's all
about
relative.
30 years on me, apparently. But fair enough. Are there exemptions to things like the Ten Commandments? Can you kill somebody sometimes? Is it okay to kill Hitler?
Okay, great question. Yes, the Ten Commandments are moral absolutes. But do those moral absolutes apply in the same way to every situation?
I'm asking you that. Yeah,
Right,
that's my question.
that's the question. Okay, good. I just want to clarify, make sure we're on the same page. All right. I feel that some followers of Christ have misunderstood the commandment, you shall not kill. I am convinced from both the Hebrew word and the context that that is referring to murder. I would define murder as killing motivated by selfishness, hatred, revenge.
Wait, so if you kill somebody not outside those three things, it's not murder anymore?
Okay, I'm gonna show you how. If you and I go into McDonald's.
Can I just have those three categories one more time?
You bet. Murder is killing motivated by selfishness, hatred, revenge. But if you and I go into McDonald's restaurant and a guy walks in with a gun and starts blowing people away, if you hit him high and I hit him low and we break his neck in the process, I would argue that is not murder. That is killing motivated by a drive to protect the innocent from being slaughtered.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious when it says thou shalt not murder. There's a big difference compared to protecting yourself. Self-defense.
Ethically different from murder.
So, let's say if I was in a time period where I wanted to kill Hitler, and obviously I want to kill him for a few reasons, because he's a bad guy, all this and that. I mean, let's see, wouldn't like revenge for what he did to the Jews would be, I mean, would this not be revenge? I mean, he's gassing Jews, I don't want to kill him because of that. would I be a murderer and would I go to Fireland for the rest of my life? Or
Great question. One of my heroes tried to assassinate Adolf Hitler. His name, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was deeply committed to Christ. He was a pastor in the German church. He began to watch what Hitler was doing. He became convinced, I am ethically responsible to stop Hitler from slaughtering innocent people. I have the utmost respect for the way Dietrich Bonhoeffer tried to physically stop Adolf Hitler right in his tracks by trying to assassinate him. I support that 100%.
But don't get any ideas that it's okay to just like go assassinate like a president because you disagree with them or think they're the next Hitler.
would you be a murderer?
No.
Would I be a murderer?
No.
Even though it's because of revenge, I would not be a murderer because that was part of your criteria.
Yeah, but I hate to tell you, that is not simply revenge. That is protecting the innocent from being slaughtered.
I understand that. I'm talking about my own internal motivation is primarily revenge for what he did to Jewish people, not necessarily like, you know, a moral escapade to save the world.
Right.
Would it be murder, even though I'm still killing the same person
Yeah,
you would probably kill?
if you're filled with hatred toward a human being,
I could
that's
possibly
sinful.
go to hell for killing Hitler, depending on how I feel inside.
Your motive. Correct. When you read the Sermon on the Mount, what you begin to understand is God attaches a great deal of importance to motive. So it's not just me murdering somebody that's wrong, it's me hating somebody. See, if I hate you, if I never murder you, but if I hate you, I am guilty of sin. If I never date you, but I do lust, I am demeaning a woman in my mind. That is sin, according to Christ in the Sermon on the Mount. So you see, God created you and me to really love each other, to really respect each other, and not to play mind games with each other, manipulate each other, and use each other.
To be clear, like the moral absolutism of the Ten Commandments that says thou shalt not murder is only in the sense, like, for the most part, it seems to me like the moral absolutism of the Ten Commandments seem to conflict if God is basing things on a question of motives. Right, so is it moral absolute?
Yeah.
Is it absolute? Because you say it depends on the circumstance, it depends on how I feel, and that seems to be contradictory to what you said earlier.
All right, it's real simple. In the Ten Commandments we read, you shall not murder. What is that? That is a guardrail that God is putting in place. God is not content with me simply not murdering you. God has created me to love you and to respect you. Now, if I get so mixed up in my thinking that I consider murdering you, God is putting a stake in the ground saying, Cliff, never murder Emil. But I can promise you, God has a far higher goal for me in my relationship with you than simply not murdering you. He wants me to respect you, to love you, to encourage you.
You did not murder me. Thank you for that. All right, so let me just kind of be clear, right? So the moral absolutism of the Ten Commandments is relative to motives.
No, it's not relative to motives.
I think that's what Jesus did. He took it to a whole nother level. It's not just motives, but it's what's in your heart. Why are you following the Ten Commandments? Why are you not lusting after someone? Why are you not hating someone? Because the Bible says, oh, you're not committing adultery because you're trying not to do it. It's, well, he's like, well, even if you think about it, even if you lust after someone that's committing adultery, even if you hate someone within your heart, that's literally the same thing. But obviously, there's greater consequences to doing the action in this lifetime.
It is based on an understanding that the human heart is what needs to change. And the human heart, changed by Christ, is going to be a heart that loves and respects.
Okay,
now,
so
if any of us get so confused that we consider adultery, murder, lying, watch out. That's a guardrail, and God says, no, don't go over that guardrail.
Okay, well, in that case, let's take a simpler instance, like the thou shalt not bear false witness.
Yes.
Seems pretty standard. Is it bear false witness based on motives, or always never bear a false witness?
Well, that's where followers of Christ disagree. Some followers of Christ would say, I am not responsible to tell you the truth if by giving you the truth, you're going to be able then to go out and murder people.
Well, let's not just say murder.
So that's where...
That's an easy standard to abide by, right? Just don't lie, because of murder. Are there any other standards that in situations where I can lie, that's not about like stopping someone from murdering anyone?
Okay.
I would like to know.
I do not know. Why? Because I'm not the judge. God is. And God is all-knowing, and I'm not
You
all-knowing.
seem to know why in regards to murder. Is it just not outlined? Did Jesus
Correct,
really
it's
get
not
all
outlined.
into depth about the whole lying thing?
Right, that's exactly right. We are not to lie, we're to speak the truth. But, and although I will stick to that in a very strong way, I understand why certain followers of Christ who are sincere and really seek to honor Christ say, wait a second, Cliff, if this criminal is asking for information, and if you give them that information, you know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to rape and murder people. They do not deserve to get the truth from you. I understand their point.
Okay, so I mean, for the most part, like I guess the other commandments, or particularly lying, Jesus doesn't like talk about it all that much.
Correct.
Okay, that's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, you know, I
Wait a
don't.
second. But here's why I think it's not unfortunate. You see, the point of Christianity is not, here are the rules, Emil, follow them. The point of Christianity is, I am God who loves you. I've become a man in Jesus. That's how personal I am. I want to personally connect with you to live in a spiritual relationship with you. So Christianity is not just getting all the rules right. Christianity is knowing God, knowing Christ. That's why faith is so important.
Yeah.
Faith is not, hey God, I think you exist. That's not what God is concerned about. God is concerned about, God, I want to live in relationship with you. And that's what heaven will be, an eternal love relationship with a living God.
I mean, I probably won't find out, but in any circumstance, I do have other things to do. It's actually really interesting.
Good to meet you, Neil. Thanks for raising all the issues you did.
Woo! Wow. I'm going to show you guys in the Bible where it says that it's okay to lie. It doesn't say that exactly, but I'm going to show you. And you guys will be blown away. In Hebrews 11, verse 31, it says, "It was by faith that Rahab, the prostitute, was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies." So the story goes, in the Old Testament, Caleb and Joshua were hiding from the people in Jericho. And they were hiding from the soldiers, and they hid in Rahab's house. And the soldiers came to look for these spies. She lied and said they weren't at her house. And now it says in Hebrews, by faith, she has helped some people. It was by faith that Rahab, the prostitute, was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God, for she had given a friendly welcome to the people. Wow. Isn't that crazy? So obviously, you shouldn't lie to get things that you want. You shouldn't deceive. You shouldn't bear false witness. Obviously, lie about other people for whatever reason, for whatever your own gain is. That's being dishonest and not okay, which is a sin. But a lot of it is motive. Like the Sermon on the Mount is just like bringing everything Jesus taught is just like, what's in your heart? What's the reason why you want to do ministry? Is it just for money, or is it just to make people think that you look good? So in the description below, you can click the link to help you decide to follow Jesus for the first time. I encourage you to do that. If you've never accepted Jesus into your heart, this will be the best decision you could ever do.